If you have some instability in your front end suspension and it's due to your front lower control arms, this TTX front lower control arm and ball joint assembly for the passenger side can make a big difference for your 2007 through 2016 Silverado 1500. Now again, this is the passenger side, but we do also have the driver's side available on our site if you need both sides for your truck. Now, suspension goes bad over time, whether it's just from constant use, abusive driving situations, larger wheels and tires, or even a lift kit, and this provides a durable refresh to not only get that stability that you've been lacking back, but tougher and more long-lasting performance. This control arm is designed to improve the feel and performance of the front end, especially if you are working with a broken or worn down ball joint. Now, they also allow for proper caster and camber alignment, allowing you some better confidence when driving with heavier tires or on tougher terrain thanks to the more dialed in setup. This control arm is also serviceable, including a 180-degree SAE grease fitting on the ball joint, so you can maintain this over time for a long lifespan and enjoy the benefits of this without having to worry about it. This has a forged steel construction while maintaining an OE Plus style build, so this has a direct fit with a tougher design to eliminate any chance of damage. Now, on top of the steel, you can also see this has a bronze or gold color to it. That is the Repel Tech finish, keeping corrosion and rusting at bay. The ball joints are also very tough with a heavy-duty construction and self-lubricating sintered bearings on the inside for long-term use. The kit also comes with natural rubber bushings on the ends and all new hardware, including easy snap cotter pins and a high-strength multi-lip locking polyurethane boot to prevent any tears and resist any dirt or debris from getting in and getting to that ball joint. Now, per control arm, this is about $225 per side. Comparing this to others available in the category, one thing that stands out here is the upgrade that you're getting. Now, while it may take the factory style approach, this brings a more sophisticated design to the table, being stronger and more reliable, especially when it comes to that ball joint. Now, others in the category may take a similar approach, but if you're searching for a control arm that's easy to maintain over time and is already put together for a no questions asked install, this is a great choice for you. Now, install here is a tougher one, so I am going to give this a 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, considering that you should have some experience when tackling this job. Now, if you do have that and the right tools and setup, it should take you about 3 hours or so to get this installed, and I highly recommend that you take your truck to get it aligned after this is bolted up for the proper performance, wear, and on other components and tire wear. Now, at this point, I'm going to pass it over to one of our installers who is going to show you a detailed breakdown on how this bolts up. So I am going to wrap that up for my review. Let's go ahead and get into the install.
Tools required for this install include a couple different size impact guns, a ratchet, 15 and 24 millimeter wrenches, 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench, a clip remover tool, a soft blow and dead blow hammer, a ball joint tool, a chisel, an extension, T30 torque socket, 15 and 18 millimeter swivel sockets, 10, 21, 24, 27, and 36 millimeter sockets, a caliper hook, a bungee cord, a pry bar, as well as a pole jack and a grease gun. What's up, guys? Today we're installing a lower control arm on our Silverado, so let's get started. So I'm going to start up top by taking a 10 millimeter socket to remove these two 10 millimeter bolts holding our brake and ABS line brackets in place. Then I'm going to go up top, disconnect our ABS connector, use a clip remover tool to pop that clip out, and we can get that out of the way. I'll pop that bracket out of the way. I'm just gonna throw my bolt back there so we don't lose it. Do the same thing up here. And then go up top with your clip tool, pop that clip, and then press in on this black tab. Pop your connector out. And then I'm just gonna open up this clip using that same clip remover tool. Pop your ABS wire out of there and just drape it off to the side. Next, I'm gonna remove our axle nut. So I'm gonna take a chisel and a hammer to get in between the lip of this cover to pop that off, and then that'll give us access to that axle nut. And I just work my way around in a circle. And just keep working this around in a circle until you get it to pop out. Now I'm going to take a 36mm axle nut socket to remove my axle nut, and then we'll come back to this later to pop this axle out of the knuckle. I'll pull that washer off as well. Now next we need to remove our caliper. I'm going to pull this off as one complete piece. So we have an 18mm bolt at the top and bottom. I'm going to grab a caliper hook that I'm hooking up to my spring, and then I'll hang my caliper on that hook just so we don't put a bunch of tension on our brake line. I'm going to get that in place and then take an 18mm swivel socket and remove those 2 bolts. And then just make sure you have a hand on your caliper before you fully remove this last one. And once I've got it broken free, I'm going to get my hand on it and fully remove it. And then just wiggle it off your rotor and get your caliper hook attached to it. Now next, while we're down here, I'm going to take a 15mm socket and wrench and remove our sway bar end link. And then you can thread your nut out the rest of the way. And then push that bolt down. Take my bushing out. And now I'm just going to take a pry bar and get it on the lower control arm, pry up a little bit, and get my end link out. Next, we're going to take a 15mm socket and remove our 2 lower strut bolts. Next, grab a 24mm socket and remove the nut on the lower ball joint. And then I'm just going to thread that on, a couple threads just in case that were to disconnect. Next, we can remove our rotor. I've got a T30 Torx bolt that's holding this rotor onto the hub. So T30 Torx socket, crack that bolt loose, and then run it the rest of the way out. And now we're lucky because our rotor just popped right off. If you are going to be reusing this after installing this, take a rubber mallet and just beat around the edge. You can also get it from the back in the spot the caliper was where there's no dust shield, just so that you don't damage your rotor and you're able to reuse it. Next, we need to remove our tie rod end. So I'm going to take a 21mm socket to remove this nut. Now, I like to push up on the impact gun while I'm taking this nut off. Sometimes it'll cause the tie rod to pop out of the knuckle. If not, we'll grab a hammer and just beat it out. And that popped out nicely for us. So we'll pull that off to the side, put our nut back on so we don't lose it. Next, we're going to remove the nut on our upper control arm ball joint. So take an 18mm ratcheting wrench and pull that off. And then with that nut still on a few threads, take a hammer and just strike the side of the knuckle to get that ball joint to pop free. And then once you got it popped out, you can fully remove that nut. And then we're going to take a pry bar and just get it under the coils of the spring to pull that upper control arm out of the knuckle. Next, I'm going to grab a ball joint tool to pop our lower ball joint out of place. So I'm going to take these hooks and put them onto the knuckle. Make sure you're not on the boot there. And then thread this stud onto the bottom of the ball joint stud. And then take a 16mm socket and start tightening that stud down. And now these things have a tendency to go to the moon once they pop, so just watch your face. So now I've got a bunch of tension on there. It doesn't really want to thread on any further. So I'm going to take a hammer and just give a couple taps to the knuckle here. Now, while I was grabbing another ball joint tool to try this again, this did actually pop out for me. So now once you have that disconnected, you're just going to do a little shimmy to pop your axle out of the hub, as well as your lower control arm ball joint out of the knuckle. So now we just have our 2 bolts on the lower control arm to remove. Before we do that, I'm going to put a bungee cord on our axle here, since this is supported by the lower control arm at this point. So I'm just gonna go underneath. I'm gonna hook this hook around once just so it pulls it up a little bit. And now we'll go over to our lower control arm pivot points and remove those 2 bolts. So now I'm gonna get an 18mm swivel socket on the bolt side, and you'll need a 24mm wrench for the nut side, and we'll remove this. Be careful when you're loosening this because these bolts pinching the lower control arm is the only thing holding this up right now. So once you loosen it, it can swing down, get you right in the back of the head. So now once again, for this one, make sure your head's clear. And there goes our lower control arm falling. I'll swing my socket around to the other side. Now remove your nut and your washer from both sides. Push the bolts out. So now the bolt at the back is gonna hit the sway bar here. So I'm gonna try to pull this bolt out and move my control arm to the side. It's probably not gonna work, but we'll see if we can get the clearance we need to not have to remove the sway bar. I'll rotate that up, and we are just barely contacting that. So we're gonna have to come over here and disconnect our sway bar mount. So now grab yourself a 10mm socket and remove these two bolts holding the sway bar. We shouldn't have to do anything on that side, but if we do, then we'll go over there after this. And then we'll just pull down on our sway bar enough to pop that bolt out. And then remove your lower control arm. So now we're ready to put our new lower control arm in. I'm gonna get this bolt over here installed first. You're gonna be using the shorter bolt on the forward facing one and the longer on the back. I'll get this one in first and then I'll play with the sway bar to get this one in. So now on the other side, we'll get that hole lined up and then pull down on your sway bar to slide it through. And now at this point, you can grab your sway bar bracket, slide that onto your bushing. Take my 10mm socket, and then just line your sway bar up and start threading in that bolt. And then do the same on the other side. And then just make sure they're both threading nice and easy, and then you can throw the gun on the other side and tighten this down. So now grab your washer and your nut for each side, and we're just gonna thread those on. And then swing your lower control arm up and slide a pole jack underneath. And then we can grab our knuckle and wrestle that into place. All right, so now for the fun part, we're gonna slide our axle into place, get the stud into the hole on the knuckle, and then you could rotate the hub or the axle to get that lined up to pop in. And now once you have that in place, take your new nut, thread that onto the lower ball joint, and then take your washer and your axle nut and thread that onto the axle. Now before we go any further, we're gonna have to grease up this ball joint. This isn't gonna be very accessible to thread in a grease fitting once we have this all put back together. So we're gonna pull this plug out of our ball joint, and then we get a grease fitting as well as a bolt. You're gonna thread the grease fitting in and then pump it up with grease. And then you have the option, you can either put this cap over this fitting to keep all of the road grime and crap out of there, or you have a bolt that you can thread in its place just for a little security. Now, with that being said, I'm just gonna be threading in this grease fitting. It sits nice and clear of our axle, so we don't have to worry about it getting caught on anything. And with that little boot on there, we get some nice security against all the stuff getting in there and plugging up our fitting. So I'm gonna go ahead and start threading that in. And I'm gonna take an 8mm wrench just to snug it up. You don't have to go crazy with this. Just get it to bottom out. Now that's bottomed out and snugged up against our ball joint. So now you can grab your grease gun and put that fitting onto your grease fitting and just hold that straight and give it a few pumps of grease. You don't have to go crazy with this. So I've got a few pumps in there. I see our boot starting to expand, so I'm gonna pull that off And then I'm gonna grab a rag and just clean up all of that extra grease on there. So that's gonna be what attracts all the little rocks and stuff that plugs up your fitting. Get that nice and cleaned up. Put your cap on there, or pull this back out and put the bolt in if you would prefer that, and then we can keep going. So now I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect my upper control arm ball joint as well as the tie rod. Now I'm gonna pull this bungee cord that we have the axle on off first. I'm gonna raise up my pole jack a little bit to get a little slack on that. And I'll lower that back down for now. Lift up on your upper control arm, drop that in, and get your nut started. Pop the nut off your tie rod. Get that into your knuckle. Make sure your ABS line isn't getting pinched in there. Then grab a 21mm socket and tighten down your tie rod. And now grab an 18mm ratcheting wrench for your upper control arm ball joint. If this starts to spin, we have a special tool that we can use. And this one behaved, so we didn't have to get the custom tool out. If yours starts spinning, what you want is a 7/32 Allen wrench. Now on the shorter side of the wrench, I took a cutoff wheel and just cut this like halfway back. Reason being, if you were to hold the stud with a full length Allen wrench while you're tightening, then once you're fully tightened down, that Allen wrench is gonna hit the top of the axle and you're not gonna be able to get it out. So you'll be in quite the predicament if you have a ratcheting wrench on there that you can't flip to go in reverse. So just cut it down a little bit and you'll be good to go. So now we're gonna come to the bottom and take a 27mm socket to tighten down our castle nut. And now we want that slit in the stud to line up with one of these slices on the castle nut. So if it's not lined up, you're gonna wanna tighten it down a little more. You never wanna loosen this to get it to line up. So I'm gonna give it a couple more hits. And we should go a tiny little bit more. And we're nice and lined up there now. Take your cotter pin, slide it in, and then this side is gonna hook around one of the other open spots of your castle nut, clip into place. Now we're gonna reinstall our two lower strut bolts. So just go ahead and pull back on the strut to line up your holes. Start threading your bolts in. And then you can take a 15mm swivel socket and tighten this down. Now we can grab that 36mm axle socket and tighten down our axle nut. Now once you have that tightened down, you can slide your cap on, just put it on straight, and then just take a rubber mallet, give it a good whack to seat it into place. Next we can reinstall our brake and ABS line brackets. So now you want to make sure that this is in front of the upper control arm ball joint. This doesn't go behind like this, it goes over. So remove the bolt that you threaded back in, thread it through the bracket. We'll do the same thing back here. Got to go underneath of this hook on our caliper. Raise your brake line bracket back up. The grommet has a little slit here that's going to line up. Press that down into place, clip it down. Thread your bolt back in. And then plug your ABS sensor back in. Press the clip back down into the frame. And then grab your 10mm socket, tighten down your two bolts. Next you can reinstall your rotor. Now you want to make sure that one of these holes that doesn't have a thread is lined up with the thread in the hub. And then thread your set screw back in with that T30 Torx socket. And then you can throw your ratchet on the other side and tighten it down. You don't have to go crazy tight with this one. Now we can reinstall our caliper. So we'll pick it up and lift it off our hook and then just slide this over your rotor. And then you can get your bolt started to hold it in place, and then we'll go under, get the other one and tighten them down. Now get your bottom bolt threading. And then once you have both your bolts started, take your 18mm swivel socket with an extension. Next, we can reinstall our sway bar end link. So I'm just gonna pry up on our sway bar just to be able to slide that in. And then grab your bolt and your bushing. Slide that up through your end link and then get your bushing and nut on top. Thread your nut on and then grab your 15mm socket and wrench. So now the last thing we need to do is go back to our lower control arm pivot points and tighten down our bolts. I've got a pole jack underneath the bottom of the knuckle here to put a load on our suspension. You want to put a load on there before you tighten down any bushings in the suspension. If you do it at full droop, then once you put the car on the ground, that bushing is not going to be able to turn freely and you run the risk of ripping, tearing your bushing, and it's not going to be fun. So I've got a load on the front of the suspension. I'm going to take my 18mm socket and 24mm wrench and tighten these down. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the TTX front lower control arm and ball joint assembly for the passenger side of your 2007 to 16 Silverado 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.